Okay. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 6. I thought Dennis was here. Am I missing Dennis? Oh, there you are. Yeah.
We're missing Ned.
So just Ned. Yep. Give him a minute or so.
It looks like Tom Kelty dropped off as a panelist and came back on as an attendee, so I'm going to move him back over to a panelist.
You might want to start the meeting, and then if Ned shows up, be seated.
Tom, I'm going to go down the line for the board members. If you could just acknowledge that you're here and that you can hear me, and then we can hear you, then let whoever get started. So Jason Brown.
Present.
All right, thanks, Jason. Dennis Crow.
Yep.
Bill Piggott.
Here.
Catherine Ferrante.
Here.
Rich Gilbert.
Here.
And Tom Kelty. Tom, I see that you're muted. Tom, a second to see if he can respond. Tom, if you could unmute yourself. So I have no acknowledgement from Tom, so I'll let the board decide. You guys want to operate without him, or you want to give him a few more minutes to try to figure out whatever technology issues he may be having.
Let's give him a few more minutes. Do we have his phone number?
Yeah. I'll give him a call.
You give him a call?
Yeah,
Because he's the vice chair.
right.
And John, you might just want to mute your Zoom while you're giving him a call. So there you go.
I can call Ned too. I have his number.
Yeah, that might be a good idea, Jason.
I'm just moving Ned over. He jumped on as an attendee. So let's
Oh,
hope-
good, okay. Tom can't get on. He's asking if we want to give him a call on his cell phone, and then he can't
If he can't
unmute.
participate fully in the meeting, then he can sit out.
Okay,
So,
so we'll go with Ned.
yeah, Ned's here. Ned, you might need to unmute yourself and turn on your video.
And Dave, as soon as Ned, okay, I'm gonna recall Tom and tell him that, he can
Tell him to
listen.
sit
All right, I
this one out.
successfully got Ned.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I wanna
fine.
let
You
him
just
know.
mute yourself, John, give him a call, and then let's get started.
will do.
Good evening. I'd like to apologize for being tardy. I was having trouble getting into the meeting tonight. I've been having trouble with my cell phone all night or all day and was at Verizon. So please accept my apologies. And as soon as John gets ready, we can get started.
All right, Ned, I think we're ready.
We can get going? Okay, again, I'd like to apologize and hopefully we can make this a quick meeting. I'd like to call to order the September 8th meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals. The procedure is we will have, we need to have 5 members to be able to have the hearing. You can have, or you can have 4 members hear the hearing, have a hearing, but you need a majority to win, not a simple majority, but it has to be a full majority. So 3 to 2 will not give you the variance. I'd like to introduce the board. Richard Gilbert is a regular member. Jason Brown is a regular member. Bill Piggott is a regular member. Where's Dennis Crow?
Here,
You are an alternate.
that's correct.
And Catherine Ferranti is a alternate as well. Correct?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. And how many members do we have here tonight? Marlene, do you know? 1.
We have 6.
We have 6. Okay, so we have a full complement. We don't need an alternate.
Have we?
Well, yeah, you've got, excuse me, but.
Oh, I'm sorry, Tom is on the,
Right, you need to sit an alternate for Tom.
oh, he's not on at all. He's
No,
not participating at all. Okay, I'm sorry. Catherine, did you participate last time?
I missed the last meeting. The time before that, I participated.
Okay. Dennis? Do you want to participate tonight? Can you
Uh,
participate?
Either way, I'll defer to Catherine if she'd like.
Pardon?
I'll defer to Catherine, like. I will
Would you
defer
sit
to
as
Catherine if she would like to
alternate tonight, Kathy?
hear me.
Oh, okay. I'll participate then if that's all right.
Okay, that's great.
And I'll stay for the,
Okay. And Marlene Kennedy is our secretary, and I'd like to ask her now to read the, let me finish with the introduction here. 4 votes are needed for application to be approved. Our clerk, Marlene Kennedy, will read the call of the meeting as it was published online. Remember, all items, pictures, uses will be part of the application and property of the board. This is the last opportunity to withdraw your application before moving forward. All those addressing the board should please give your name and address for record. And the clerk will now read the application as it was published.
Okay,
Marlene?
yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Zoning Board of Appeals, regular meeting agenda, Tuesday, September 8th, 2020, 7 PM. Application 8233 plus CSP 67 and 69 Middle Beach Road West, map 15, lots 26 and 27, R4 district. Owner applicant 67 Middle Beach Road West LLC. Request to vary sections 2.17 and 3.8B of the Madison zoning regulations to permit 3,320.10 lot coverage where 2,680 square feet is allowed to permit construction of single-family home within the 50-foot critical coastal resources. 8233 plus CSP application documents. And next item on the agenda is approval of minutes, August 11, 2020, and then adjournment. Okay,
Okay.
should I call the person? Call the application?
Who would be the first speaker for the application?
Excuse me, that would be me.
Okay, good morning, good evening, Chris.
How are y'all? I apologize for my glasses. They're the kind that stop the blue rays from getting into my eyes, but they look really strange on Zoom, as I'm noticing. But my name is Chris McKeon. I'm an attorney. I live in Madison at 31 Hotchkiss Lane. I am representing the applicants who are here tonight, John and Lori Gavin, as you can see. Also with us tonight is Mike Harkin, who is the site engineer, and Russ Campaign, who is the project architect. I think we've got a solid project, and a lot of time has gone into eliminating a number of nonconformities while at the same time needing two variances in two different respects. But those variances are requesting an even lower nonconformity than presently exists. So without further ado, I'm going to allow Russell, the project architect, to explain to you the project and what's been done in terms of reducing or eliminating nonconformities and further explaining the variances we're requesting.
Okay, so I'm sharing my screen. So can you see, let's see, can you see the screen now with the first plan? Great. So I'm Russell Campaign. I'm from CK Architects, 131 Boston Street. And Lori and John hired me to take a look at this new property. When the adjacent parcel on 67 came up for sale, they saw an opportunity to address some of the shortcomings they felt they had with 69, where they had done some improvements. It was always kind of tight and very close to the neighbors and sort of constrained. It wasn't sort of able to be expanded. So after looking and researching this a little bit, we saw great opportunities to merge the two lots. So currently 69 is a non-conforming undersized lot. So merging it to the adjacent lot will bring that lot into conformity. And also analyzing the property, there's two garages on each of the two properties that are in the front yard and non-conforming with side setback and height that sort of block the presentation of the property from the street and are kind of a little unusual on the strip there. So we first started by thinking of taking those down and then started looking at where to position the house, which logically was more centered on the property to alleviate any side lot setback issues that were existing between the two properties. So in designing the house and working through the details, we sort of weighed where to position it front to back on the property to balance the front yard setback, which you can see we're right on with our staircase here in the front. And then the rear setback we're fully conforming with, but there's an additional coastal site plan setback of 50 feet. The current house at 67 is only 4.69 feet off of that property line. So we sort of positioned the house back from where the existing 69 is, but sort of balanced holding the front property line, but ending up with over 37 feet from the critical coastal resource. So it's an improvement of over 32 feet from the existing condition that's there now, which I think is pretty good. So if I go to this next plan in your package, this is an illustration of all of the nonconformities and sort of a measurement of where the current property stands with our proposal. So again, we centered the property, which is the dark gray, and that's the main level of the house with the staircases that gain access. This is the lighter gray is showing areas that are outside of the conforming that we're actually removing. So you can see on the coastal site plan side of things, we're moving quite a bit of area within that zone. And then the two garages, which are fully outside of the setbacks and really not allowed as a detached garage to be in the front yard at all. So we're really cleaning up and consolidating the site, which I think in general is a huge improvement on how that will read and how it will sit on the property. And it's much more in conformity with the zoning regulations. These color diagrams over to the side start to measure what the relationship of the existing nonconformities outside of setback. So you can see here, the green areas are non-conforming areas of the existing two properties that are outside of setback. Whereas the lower blue areas shown in this are actually areas in our new proposal that are outside of setback. So we're actually reducing the total amount of lot coverage by about 2,000 square feet outside of the setback requirements or in the non-conforming areas of the site, which again is a huge improvement by being able to consolidate it in the center of the property. So looking at the way that the property sits, I think some of the three-dimensional models work well for us in presenting this. The house, as Mike Harkin will present to you, is in a VE zone. So as you know, we have to raise the structure up just about 8 feet. And the lower level is only allowed for storage access, garage use. We can't have any living space down there. So one of the non-conforming aspects of the existing property at 69 is a variance was received to have it above the current height limit of average height was what it asked for, which was 30.1, which was granted when they raised that structure. We're bringing that into conformity with our new proposal, so it will meet the height restrictions of the requirements when we rebuild. But it does have an impact on how we can utilize the property. So I think in measuring how the property sits, we are conforming with regard to the living area of the property, the FAR, which I think is your measure of bulk and how the house actually is perceived as far as its scale. So it's in keeping with the proportions required for the site. Where we weren't able to bring it into conformity is with lot coverage. And I think our constraint is that normally when we can live in the basement level or potentially have an attic, which a lot of the houses along this strip in this area of town have, you gain a little bit more living space for a smaller footprint. But with the inability to have any living space below in the FEMA zone, and with a height constraint, we don't have the ability to have any upper story living or understory living. And so the ratio of bulk needs to be spread out a little bit over the overall site. And so we're still reducing the overall lot coverage from what is there now. And you'll hear from Mike Harkins that we're introducing stormwater drainage systems and other measures to address the additional lot coverage. But we weren't able to bring that into conformity or asking for a variance associated with that. And I think I'm linking that mostly to say our living area and the sort of perceived bulk of the house is in conformity with the zoning ratio. But the lot coverage is driven up a little bit, mainly because of some of the constraints of the site being in a VE zone and bringing the house into conformity with regards to height. The plans, I'm not sure how much interest you have in the layout. But the septic does not need to be expanded. It's actually an existing septic that was put in when the improvements were done to 69, and that will actually satisfy the house. So it's a new system. And the other site improvements and such are meeting all of the FEMA code and best practice management efforts that we're including in all these houses along the shore now. So we think, it's modeled somewhat after what was done across the street, which is, again, the Gavins own that as a guest house, and sort of will be in keeping with a lot of the houses along that strip, sort of with a coastal New England styling, cottage styling. So I think overall, we have a very good application. I think we've done quite a bit to reduce the number of nonconformities between the two properties, and have really minimized the implications of these two variances that we're looking to be, for you to grant us. I'll also point out, and it has been submitted, that you'll be able to read into record, that we received, I believe, 6 letters that are positive from direct abutters and 1 off abutters within the 150-foot radius. So that does speak to the neighborhood feeling as though that this is appropriate for what they see as the way this neighborhood is being developed. So I think that's positive from the avenue of making sure that it's in keeping with the comprehensive plan and the neighborhood support. And I guess unless there's specific questions, statistically, I think actually Chris wrote a letter that also can be read into record that actually memorializes some of the variances in more detail, as well as some of the givebacks or the things that we've taken away that were non-conformities of the property. So I'll open it up to answer any questions you may have.
You want to go over the application page, or do you want to stick with the questions on here first?
Yeah. Why am I not stop sharing? So I'm sorry, are there questions?
Yeah, I have one.
Sure.
So Russ, thanks for giving us this presentation. So what you're telling me, what I think I heard you say, was that the floor area ratio falls below what the requirement is. However, because we can't live below grade or in the attic space here due to other limitations of the zoning regulations, that the nonconformity caused from building a new structure over what is required is acceptable. That's a compromise. So what we're saying is that we can't build a livable house in the 2,680 square foot lot coverage requirement.
Well, there is an avenue that Chris will propose in his letter associated with the ability to grant a variance without necessarily having a hardship. It's basically associated with reductions of existing nonconformity, which I think we've shown that we
right.
have.
So my opinion is that we're knocking down a building. We're knocking down four structures.
Yep.
And that are horribly nonconformant, and we're building one structure from new that is also nonconformant.
That has many fewer nonconformities, but yes. And so, I do think that there is a little bit of a hardship associated with the restrictions of, so the way that the interaction in zoning is between the lot coverage and the floor area is that they sort of model a certain ratio of how much floor area you have per floor. And we're having 2 floors of living area and are conforming with regard to the FAR, but don't have the ability to stack it quite as much. And so we're spreading out on the site a little bit. We're still improving the condition we have, and we're offsetting that impact by drainage systems and other better practices of improvement of the site's drainage systems and such. But from a measurement of bulk, I think we're in keeping with what the goal of the floor area, total floor area, which is basically a measurement of volume, the way you write your code, versus having a little bit more coverage associated for that same amount of area. So I think it's a compromise that we're proposing in order to lessen the existing nonconformities, but still have a little bit of wiggle room in order to basically get the floor area. Because if we were to reduce the lot coverage, we basically would be reducing the amount of livable space well below the floor area ratio. In other words, the two kind of work together. Does that answer your question? Or
yeah, so there is a solution. So what you're telling me is that there is a solution to the equation which would meet all of the zoning requirements. We just haven't been able to find that while maximizing the floor area with what is allowed in the Because we're at 4798 and a half. And the requirement is 4,800, or the maximum is 4,800. So we're trying to maximize the floor area, but we can't do that in the given lot, in the given property, because of the requirements to meet FEMA code and stuff like that.
Yes.
I would point out that, sorry, this is Chris McKeon speaking. In addition to the nonconformities that you mentioned that are going away, it's important to note that by merging the lots, you're getting rid of a non-conforming lot and having a conforming lot before you put any structure on it. So it's more than just a setback and location and volume of the structure. It is a lot that will no longer be non-conforming on that street. I'll get into that to the law a little bit, because there has been an evolving body of law regarding the reduction of nonconformities as a justification for a variance without a showing of hardship, and that is exactly what our application is. And there's a series of cases that were summarized, if you will, in the most recent case being a case called Fettis versus Old Lyme ZBA. And it's a 2018 case. And it was a waterfront property, and it was a clear recognition that reduction of nonconformities is an independent basis for granting a variance without a showing of hardship. And that's based on a couple of Supreme Court cases, one called Adolphson versus Zoning Board and the other called Vine. And there's been a whole host of Superior Court decisions, at least one of which that I'm aware of, where a reduction in nonconformities was sufficient to justify a variance, even where the applicant was introducing a new nonconformity, which is not the case here. We're eliminating nonconformities, and with what we're proposing, we are requesting variances, yes, but we're requesting variances in two specific areas that are worse in terms of nonconformity than what we're proposing. So it is a unique case amongst all the other cases that I'm aware of, because we're not only reducing a bunch of nonconformities, but we're requesting by way of variance less nonconformity than already exists. So that justification, I think, is sufficient to, I know it's a legal basis for you to exercise your discretion and grant the variances. And one other point, which Mike Harkin will get into when he speaks, is that the home that is being built is going to be FEMA compliant and compliant with all FEMA best practices, which is just not the case right now. So the fact that you're going to have a piece of property that consists right now of a non-conforming lot and a conforming lot and a bunch of non-conforming structures are all going to be consolidated in what I would submit is a very intelligent way to reduce literally every nonconformity on the site. There isn't one that's being increased or introduced, and you're going to enable the new residents to comply with FEMA and the guidelines and best practices under FEMA. So to me, there's multiple layers of rationale and justification for the variance. And I did submit a letter today, and I'm not sure whether all of you have gotten it. I do believe it is part of the record, John. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So I don't know that it needs to be read into the record.
Right.
But
Please don't.
I go through the line of cases that I highlighted for you. And it seems to me, based on the facts of those cases, that we have, in many cases, more than sufficient justification than in those cases where variances were granted on this basis, again, without any independent showing of a legal hardship.
Attorney McKeon, I have a question. This is Catherine
Sure.
Farnsworth. Do any of these cases deal with two lots being combined into one?
Excuse me, I do not know, but I don't believe so. I don't believe so, but I think I know where you're heading. If we were to combine the lots just and not do any construction, we'd have a legal lot, but we'd still have a whole host of nonconformities on this site. So while I don't think there is a case directly on point with a merger of lots, the factors involved in these cases, I think, are much less compelling than what we're doing here in a scenario where we're getting rid of a nonconforming lot by doing a merger. So doing the merger and leaving the structures that were there, which is entirely legal, would allow for more nonconformities to continue than what we're proposing. So we're merging, we're making a compliant lot, and we're making a structure compliant with more compliant, not only with our zoning regulations, but with FEMA requirements.
Thank you.
So I have a question. So you're claiming really that there's no legal hardship in your application?
Correct. The case law indicates that there's two avenues to get a variance, one being establishing a legal hardship, which based on a number of cases is oftentimes very difficult. And the second avenue being exactly what I've laid out in my submission and the body of case law that is now very well confirmed, that reduction of nonconformities can be an independent basis for granting of a variance without a showing of legal hardship.
Yeah, because in 8B, in your application, you say reductions in the lot coverage would make it difficult to justify the investment. Well, that's a financial hardship.
Yeah.
And that's not a legal hardship. So it's in your application that you're stating a financial hardship here. And my interpretation is that a financial hardship is not a legal hardship.
I agree with you on that concept, but the hardship argument is not the avenue we're pursuing this variance.
Yes. I mean, I realize that now. And when we got your letter today, which came in late afternoon, we didn't know that you were basing your application now on the reduction in the setbacks. I was under the impression that until your letter came in today that there was some hardship involved, and obviously it's not now.
Well, I think in section 6 of the application, it indicates that the proposed application is reducing all of the nonconformities.
Yep.
And I think in section 8, the reductions in all of the nonconformities are addressed as well.
Yes, they are.
And I realize that probably the majority of the applications that come before you are based on some type of alleged hardship.
Correct.
I'm aware of others that have come before you on the independent basis of a reduction of nonconformities. And I haven't seen any that have as many reductions and benefits, if you will, based on post-development than what was existing pre-development. Just holistically looking at these two lots and what is there right now, the proposed development of the combined sites from a zoning perspective is a much, much more compliant and encouraged type of a development than what's existing right now.
Well, my observation would be when you combine the two lots and now you have a new merged lot. Okay, that's what we have to really look at is the new merged lot. I mean, you set new boundaries with the merged lot and new variances. So that's what I'm going to look at. Not necessarily what was in the past. I mean, you've reset the clock here. And
So Bill, I have not, the inter setbacks, because there's multiple nonconformities on the inner property, shared property line between the two properties as well that we haven't noted
Yeah.
in our application. We are
Okay.
treating the existing buildings on the merged lot is where we're taking our statistics for all of our reductions
Yeah.
in our nonconformities.
well, when I look at the variance for the square footage, when you went from 2680 to 3320, I mean, that's an increase of what, 640 square feet. And to me, that seems a bit excessive. I mean, that's if I've done my math correctly, that's like a 24% increase over of what's allotted there. But to me, my first impression, and again, it's just my first impression,
Mhm.
It seems a little excessive.
But the existing total lot coverage is 3,345 square feet. So that's the existing nonconformity is 3,345 square feet, and we're reducing it to 3,320 square feet.
It's not the 2680. The 2680 is what's allowed
Yes.
and is already being violated,
Yeah.
exceeded, if you will.
Yeah, you're going from 2680.
Nope.
No.
No, I'm sorry. It's 2680 what's allowed, and you're going to
Right.
3320. Right.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm just saying you got a 640 square foot increase. And to me right now, I mean, that seems a little high. That's all I'm saying right now.
What is allowed and existing individually on the two lots that exist now?
So that is in our chart and it's broken down.
Okay.
So well, actually, I don't have the allowed for each of the properties. I do have the existing conditions broken down. So I could look at the chart and probably try and figure out what it's not. It's not even a linear relationship, or is it just no, it's algorithmic.
No, I think I can answer a little bit. When I looked at before I bought the neighbor next door, it was total livable, I think 3,300 square feet just on the 69 property. It's not linear.
Yeah.
Dave Anderson, are you on the line?
I am. John Delore is the staff rep here. If he has his book in front of him, he could read it to you really quickly. But Russ probably has it available too.
Yeah.
I think these numbers are important. If the application is based on a reduction in nonconformities, then I think we need to compare the existing nonconformity on the existing individual lots to the proposed nonconformity on the combined lot. So I think we need to know what is allowed on each individual lot and what is currently existing on each individual lot.
Hey, Kathy, I think I understand what you're going at here. So the existing nonconformity so I'm looking at, what drawing is this? I'm looking at the architectural site plan A050, prepared by CK Architects. Table, why is my mouse not working? Only table on the sheet. This table, I believe, is the one that we're talking about. We have allowed, existing, and proposed. I haven't had the opportunity to go back and double check this, but from what we're looking at here, second column, probably about 75% of the way down, where it talks about lot coverage in square feet. Identifies it identifies the requirement, which is 2,680 feet, right? 2,680 square feet. And then we have existing non-conforming, which I believe is the sum of the square footage of all of the buildings on the property. House, garage, open porches, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Okay, and then we have the next column over, which is the proposed, which says that the decreased existing nonconformity is 3,320 square feet. And then open porches make up 353 square feet of that. The remainder is taken up by the main building. Kathy, what you're asking for is what the percentage increase over the requirement is for the existing buildings on the lot versus the proposed on the lot. That's what you're asking for?
Yes.
So I can answer a little bit because I actually think it's really to our favor. So the chart is not linear. In other words, it's not a direct relationship between the amount of square footage of the lot and how much area you can build. It actually falls off as the lot gets larger. So actually, we're allowed for 67, we're allowed 1,648 square feet of lot coverage under the zoning regulations. And for 69, we're allowed 1,432 square feet. So if you took each of those, you actually have 3,080 square feet of buildable lot coverage if they were two individual lots. Whereas we're restricted to 2,680 square feet, 400 square feet less because of the fall off of the larger lot under the zoning regulations. Mm-hmm. So that, I think, is in our favor. I know we're asking for more than 400, but we are giving up 400 square feet by breaking the two and by merging the two and giving up the two individual lots. That's also true of the total FAR. So the total FAR of each individual property totals to 5,800 square feet if we were to keep them as two individual properties. But we're only allowed the 4,800. So we're giving up 1,000 square feet of FAR floor area by merging the two lots. That's a pretty large concession, and it does help to, I think, argue that the bulk, that we're presenting is actually more in keeping with the two individual lots.
So Kathy, I just used a calculator, and if we are looking at the total lot size, which is 2,680 square feet, and comparing what is there now versus what is proposed in square footage. So we're looking at this in a vacuum. We're looking at 24% over required for the proposal, and the existing buildings are 25% over the required. So we are so from a very narrow point of view, we are looking at decreasing nonconformity by 1% if we're trying to quantify how much nonconformity we're decreasing. If that's
very helpful.
Is that what you were looking for, Kathy?
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Have the butters on the properties surrounding the new proposed buildings, have they been supportive, or have you heard anything from them?
Yes, we have actually. If I can share my screen again here. So this is a portion of the tax map that shows the 150-foot setback. And there's letters that have been submitted, and we have received letters from Smith, Tucker, Mullane, Murphy, Burris, DeSabato, and Descois, they have all written letters positive toward our application. Schutt has actually asked a question about his view access, but hasn't necessarily expressed opposition, and you can read that letter that's in your package. So the vast majority of the neighbors and both of the adjacent neighbors and both, well, and we've heard from Schutt, but also Mullane across the street are all positive and feel, you know, that it's an appropriate benefit to the neighborhood. So I don't know if those should be in your packet, all of those letters.
Okay, Dave, I know you are not the staff member in charge here, but you're here and you are an expert on zoning. Can I question you as an expert person?
Sure.
Great. Can you speak to whether or not this proposed modification to what's there supports Madison's plan of conservation and development and the town's zoning vision for that area for residential growth control?
Well, I think, I forget who it was that hit on it before, but one of the big things our plan of conservation and development emphasizes, and one thing our current Coastal Resiliency Commission is working on, is trying to bring structures in compliance with the FEMA regulations. So certainly to the extent that this proposal, you know, establishes the building of a structure that meets the FEMA regs, that is definitely in concert with the plan of conservation and development. And then just the general reduction of nonconformities is also a big aspect to that.
Thank you, Dave.
No problem.
If I may, actually, just to sort of speak to that, I do have a photo of the house at 67, which should be on your screen now. So this is the house. It is literally, the step is literally 2 feet from the seawall, and it is, you know, 6 feet non-conforming with regard to the height that's required for a house of this structure. So the removal of this and basically setting the new house 30 feet back from where this is, or 37 feet back from where this is a huge benefit, I think, to you know, meeting the plan of conservation and development and the FEMA requirements.
Mr. Russ, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your last name.
Campaign.
Would you mind showing that 3D model again?
Sure.
And just show what you were just explaining, how the house is going to move back. So there's going to be an increase in border, an increase in the coastal wetland zone. Yes.
So you want to do it with the which model or
if you can go back one. Yeah.
Back one? This
that
one,
please.
So let's see, that's a contour. It doesn't show. So the existing house that I just showed you, 67, sits roughly closer to the boundary than where we're showing the pool. So it's in this corner over here. It's not shown on this model. And the existing 69 sits about 10 feet closer to the water as well over on this end. So I think it's really this green area is where 69 is closer, and this green area is where 67 is closer to the seawall. You can see it here too.
Okay, great, thank you. Jason, you're on mute. I saw you talking.
I was. John, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you speak to the pool?
The pool complies. The pool is within, outside 25 feet, I think, from the coastal resource. I'm not sure, but it's part of the coastal resource plan. The pool, though, does comply with the setback for the rear yard. And the side yard doesn't count for coverage. So it's really, the pool is not an issue. In fact, the uncovered deck on the second floor, if you notice it, you'll see it bowed out, and it's actually closer to the coastal site plan than the actual house. you'll see a dimension, and Russ could probably show you this on his plan, but the dimension from the coastal resource, which is the wall, the beach, to the actual house is further away than what appears to be the deck, because uncovered decks get a pass. They're an exception. So all of that really is in compliance.
So this is not part of the coastal setback
That's
because it's an
correct.
open deck
Correct.
versus this has living space above on the second floor. So therefore that's that's the nearest corner right there.
So the pool is not involved included in the coastal setback.
It's not in the coastal setback, and it's, as I said, it's not lot coverage, and it meets all of the underlying setback requirements. So the side setback and the rear setback, the coastal setback.
So the pool does not meet, or the pool meets the property setbacks, but it is within the 50-foot coastal setback, correct?
Yeah, but it's not a building.
Yeah,
But it's not a building.
That's all, 217 only applies to buildings of a certain size.
Okay.
And if you continue to read that, 217, it exempts the decks, the uncovered decks.
Is there anybody who has any more questions?
We can treat the coastal site plan review as separate hearing altogether?
Yes.
That's the way you prefer? Okay.
John, do you, just to clarify, you want to treat it as a separate standalone hearing or just as a separate motion from the board's perspective?
Well, I think typically they would hear and vote on the variance. And if it survives, then of course they would hear and vote on the coastal site plan.
Yeah, that's fine. I just want to clarify.
Thank you.
I have no further questions.
Well, I'd like to move that we close the. public-
Ned, we have a number of attendees that are on the meeting, and some of the names of which I recognize on have written letters of support, and then there's a few other folks on there as well. So I think now's the time to give them an opportunity to either ask questions or speak in favor or against the application. So what I'll do is, if you have, there's 7 attendees on the meeting right now. If you'd like to either ask a question or speak in favor and opposition of the application, I'd ask that you raise your hand. You can raise your virtual hand and then I can unmute you so you'll be able to talk. So I think now's the time to do that.
Thanks, Dave.
And I'll just go in order of hands raised. So the first hand that has been raised is Cecilia Pfister. So Cecilia, I'm going to allow you to talk. You may need to unmute yourself so we can hear you.
I got it there.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yep. Okay, good. Yeah, I'm Cecilia Pfister. I'm at 73 Middle Beach West. I was not consulted about this or asked for an opinion, so I'll offer it anyway. I think this building is way oversized for the neighborhood. It doesn't match anything along that way. If you're going to combine the lots to make them more conforming, that's fine, but don't then overbuild the way it's being planned here. That I find that very disturbing. I also had a questions about the seawall, because apparently it says it's all fine, it's all going to be left that way, the way it is, it's in good condition. But the seawall in front of number 67 is not in good condition. I don't see how that would survive construction or a pool abutting it. And I think those should be seriously looked at, but especially the architecture and the size in relation to the neighbors and what is existing, what has been existing. Unless the overall plan of the town is to replace all older, smaller homes with ones that are twice the size.
Okay.
right, there any other folks in attendance that would like to make a comment or ask a question? I'm not seeing any other hands raised at the moment, Ned.
Okay. And do we need to read anything? I don't have a packet or anything, so I can't read anything into the record in terms of comments that we've gotten in support, but there were a number of letters in the packet.
So yeah, those letters were included as part of the record, and they have actually been posted to the website upon receipt. So they're formally part of the record. I don't think there's a need to read them necessarily. I don't know if Chris or Russ wanted to summarize who submitted them, that'd be fine, but we don't need to read them verbatim.
The only question was, I know Russ referred to the assessor's map with the 150-foot radius around it. I don't know if that's part of the record or not, with the name of the various abutters.
Yeah, I can submit that. I can send that in.
Can we make that part of the record? I'm not sure how we do that on Zoom. Do we just say we're going to submit it to John?
And I'll
Yeah.
email it.
Yes, you can submit that as part of the record.
Well, if there are no further public comments, I'd like to close the public portion of the meeting and go into discussion with the commission. We have a motion.
I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Okay. Well, I think that the application, I'm very impressed. I'll go on record. I think that trying to comply with FEMA, trying to make a very livable house and conform with or reducing the nonconformities on the two existing lots are, very good for the town and good for the street. In terms of bulk, I walk that street a lot, and there are very large houses directly across at the corners. And that's why I'd asked whether or not the comments from the neighborhood had been favorable, because there are a number of houses on that street that do have that are going to be the same, that are comparable in size. So I would support this application as it was presented. I think based on the reduction in the nonconformities and the new situation of the new situation of the house on the joined lots.
I'm sorry, I'm doing some math right here real fast before
Sure.
What math are you doing, Jason?
I'm seeing what the ratio is of increase in the square footage of lot coverage to increase in the square footage of floor area. Because I have, so my single biggest, I mean, it's obvious, right? I think that the argument that we're decreasing nonconformities is semantics.
That's where I'm leaning to, and that's why I was curious as to what math you were doing. I think based on my math, which could be wrong, it seems like in terms of square foot lot coverage and what is allowable for the current lots, one appears to be conforming and the other not conforming. They will be combined into a new lot, which will be not conforming.
Right. So I have I mean, I know we're not supposed to take previous cases into consideration when we're looking at this, but we have there are a number of instances where we've had tear downs and new constructions, you know, specifically on the shoreline. A lot of houses are trying to go and be FEMA compliant. There's one right around the corner on Island, I think, that we looked at before, and they wanted to go much higher than they need than the requirements state you were allowed to go. I kind of feel like this is a reach. I kind of feel like you're looking at 4,800 square feet. You know, you're trying to maximize your square footage for what you're allowed to do. The argument over the floor area ratio, I get it. It makes sense. I just finished the math.
That part seems to go more to hardship than the reduction in nonconformities.
Right. I mean, so if you're, so the only thing that is non-conforming about this, other than building to, you know, wanting to build too close to the water, which you bought a lot on the water, that is I feel like approving the coastal site plan and the variance for building within 50 foot of a coastal resource is, you know, kind of a given because you bought a lot with a house on it on the beach or on the water. The maximizing of 4,800 square feet, which is the maximum that you're allowed to have, is, you know, you're right up at the edge of the envelope. I think so. So we are what is it? 23 or 24% over what we're allowed to have in terms of lot coverage. And if you decrease that same, if you take 25% off of the 4,800 number, you end up with 3,900 square feet. So effectively, we could be looking at a house with plans for 3,900 square feet, which would not violate the lot coverage requirement, and just be looking at the 50 foot of within a coastal resource. So we would still be looking at a 3,900 square foot home with no nothing non-conforming except, or no needs for a variance except for the 50 foot requirement, which is being decreased by moving the house back. I think what we're really looking at here is the bulk of a 4,800 square foot house, you know, on that little lot. That's why I asked Dave the question about the plan of conservation and development. That's where I'm at right now. Do I think it's a nice house? Yes. Do I think it would fit in within the properties down there? Yes. I walk down there with my dog and my kids all the time. You know, would it look nice? Yes. Is it my job to determine whether something looking nice is going to, you know, necessitate a variance? No. You know, they could have come up here with a modernist cube and had it meet and would be able to would be able to build it without any kind of input whatsoever, as long as it met all the requirements. You know, so I'm still tossing over in my head, you know, whether maximizing the square footage that you're allowed to have would be forgivable, because we're taking two properties that are not FEMA compliant, that are obvious that if a major storm hits, they're probably going to be destroyed, and replacing it with a very large home in reference to our zoning rules and regulations.
So, oh, Catherine, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm about to ask a totally unrelated question. So why don't you go ahead, Rich?
Sure. Okay. Well, since we're on square feet, and Jason, I'm not trying to sway you one way or another. So if they kept the two lots and you took the sum of the square foot coverage, it's more than what the proposed house is.
It's less than, I think
So
it's
nothing-
less, Rich, I think it's less than 1%.
But it is less, correct? I mean,
Yes. 24.8 to 20. It's 1%.
Okay, but it, I
Yeah.
mean, technically, so it is a
Oh, it's-
reduction than
it
the
is-
two
it-
that exist now.
That's why I said I'm torn,
Okay,
right? Because it is a reduction. So the argument can be made that you could grant the variance due to reduction in non-conforming portions of the design. I get
and,
it.
and the other thing, I mean, besides the square feet, Catherine, I don't know if you were gonna bring this up. I mean, they are removing the, those two, garages I saw today and
Yeah.
that, Russ reviewed in the plan, and it's coming back from the water. But Catherine, what were you gonna, sorry.
Yeah,
I
so
kinda
my
hijacked.
question, and I didn't think to ask this before we closed for discussion, but it's regard to rainfall and drainage. And, right now there are 4 structures among these 2 lots and they're spread out. And I'm imagining rainfall, falling on the roofs, going down the gutters, collecting around them, draining into the soil. What happens, how does it change when you take out those 4 smaller structures spread out and put one large structure right in the middle of the lot? And is that going to have an impact that we should be considering? Or are we even allowed to consider? I don't know.
John Delora, as the staff person for ZBA, even though the public hearing is closed, I think you can answer that question. So why don't you just, you're muted, John.
Can't hear.
There you go.
Now you're good.
Just, briefly, I'm sure when you get to the coastal side, if the variance decision survives, then you'll get to hear, I think, the professional engineer who designed all of the water management system for this particular structure. How he's going to contain that and not allow that to enter the environment any quicker or faster than it would before the construction. So I think that's a question for the coastal site plan. Right now, we're just concerned about the variances, which is 217 and the coverage. But I'm sure that Mr. Harkin will address that if the coastal site plan comes up for to be heard.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Bill? Yeah, I'm kind of with Jason, as I expressed in my earlier observation. I just think you're right at the limit here, and especially with the square footage increase where you have an increase of 640 feet. That's what I question. However, on the other side of the equation, where you've reduced the non-conformities, you have to take that into consideration also. And Ned, you made some very poignant comments, which I think are valid. So I'm kind of on the fence too.
Well, I think that if we all agree that it reduces the nonconformities, right? Even if it's by 1%, it's a reduction in nonconformity. The way that we have chosen to identify, or the way that we've chosen to quantify, physically quantify what a nonconformity, how much nonconformity you have, what the reduction of nonconformity is.
What exactly are we comparing to what to determine that it's a reduction in nonconformity? Can you clarify that?
So I think what we chose to do is we chose to take the combined square footage of the 4 structures, the 2 houses and the 2 garages on the combined lot versus the lot coverage, or versus the square footage in the new structure.
I feel like this is a special case because right now they're two separate lots. They're not combined. I don't think you can do it this way. Just combine all the square foot coverage among two individual lots and compare them to the combined lot. I think you have to look at them individually. What are the nonconformities on number 67 versus combined? What are the nonconformities on number 69 versus combined?
All right, let me do math. We can answer that.
Okay.
If this is listed anywhere and somebody knows, you can tell me. I won't be upset.
I think I'm on mute.
Are we adding the? so
I'm
on
adding,
the-
I'm adding up the existing under lot coverage,
Yeah.
67 house, 67 garage, 67 open porches at 50%, 69 house, 69 garage, 69 open porches at 50%.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm coming up with for 67, I'm coming up with 1,640 nominally with rounding.
Mhm.
to the nearest, 10. And then we're looking at 1,700 at the for 69. In accordance with our zoning rules, lot square areas of, so the first one I came up with 10,474 for 67 square feet. And the second one I came up with 10,265. Let's just call these rough numbers. So 67 would be allowed to have a maximum coverage of 1,648 square feet.
Right.
And the second one, 69, would be allowed to have a maximum lot coverage of 1,624 square feet. So we have a reduction. So I don't feel comfortable adding.
I think it's 1432 square feet for 69. Wait, 69.
1227, 452, and 26.
So 69 lot area is 8,610 square feet, right?
Yes.
The lot area of 69 is 8,000 square feet.
8,000.
Where are we seeing?
10.
Are you seeing that somewhere?
Okay.
I literally did. I did some really convoluted math to get there.
Yeah, so at the top of this chart, it says existing lot area, 19,150, and then it breaks down.
And 540. Okay.
Yeah,
Well, that makes my life a lot easier. I didn't have to do convoluted math.
okay, sorry that you were doing convoluted.
It's okay. So we have 16. So 10,540. So that puts us at
1648 allowed, right?
Yeah, so that's still 1648, and then the 8610
Is 1432. Did you get that?
32.
Yeah.
So we have the first one is conforming in that respect. The second one is drastically non-conforming. 69 is 1707 minus 1432. Divided by. So we're looking at a 20% non-conformance on 69 and conformance conforming on 67. So if you look, I mean, I guess we could add those two together. We have a 20% non-conformance, and we're going in relation to square footage, and it is increasing it to 24.
So whether you look at it, you can look at it this way where it's increasing
right
the nonconformity, or you look at the other way where it's decreasing the nonconformity by 1%. Thereabouts. Right. I don't find that a compelling argument that this variance should be granted on the basis that it decreases the nonconformity of the lots.
Right. And if that's the argument, if the argument is that it decreases the nonconformity, I mean, we have to look at the different ways. I mean, how do we want to look at the nonconformity? Do we want to look at it as it is right now, or do we want to look at it based on the combined lot? Right? I don't know. That's why I'm torn. This isn't an easy one. Rich? Bill?
Jason, when you did your calculations, you included the garages and everything?
Yeah.
Okay.
I took all the numbers they had added up. You know, but there's also the benefit, Kathy, or Catherine, of, you know, making the house FEMA compliant, but you can make the house FEMA compliant without putting a 4,800 square foot house.
The only other and I'm on the fence with you too, but the only other thing is, correct me if I'm wrong, this house did have a variance on height that they are reducing. They're gonna be within, I saw that in the application, and I remember when Russell discussed that.
That's correct. That was stated earlier.
So just something to throw into the mix. So you've got FEMA.
I mean, I don't know why you still can't accomplish FEMA with meeting the requirements
Okay.
of square footage. Right? You're building an entirely new building.
Correct. I would agree.
You're knocking down old structures. Awesome. You've taken care of the zoning compliance issues there. Done. Now you're building a new building on a different lot, which should be conforming. And I think that it's not unreasonable to ask that it be conforming in all aspects. I think that framing it as a reduction in nonconformance is a manipulation of the numbers, so you can frame it that way. And I appreciate that argument because that's a solid argument. But I think that, you know, we can look at it, you know, the one of two ways. Are we reducing nonconformance? Are we putting something that's FEMA compliant? Yes. But you know, with the opportunity for a new building, you can eliminate nonconformance and make it FEMA compliant too. I think where the application states, sorry, I have like 40 different windows open. I think, and Bill brought this up, I think that the application stating reductions in the lot coverage, which is what's in question, would make it difficult to justify the investment to merge the lots and bring the structure into full conformity with FEMA and health code, and would not allow the floor area to be in proportion of the lot size. So this is, so by reading that, I'm reading that this is being done for financial reasons.
Yeah, that's the way I look at it.
I mean, which is a valid reason to do something. But is it a valid reason to grant a variance? I don't think so. But the argument can be made that they're reducing nonconformity.
John, maybe you could clarify that on the financial reason to grant a variance. I was under the impression it's not a legal argument.
No, I would agree with that. And I think council earlier agreed with that, with you, that a financial hardship is not acceptable as a legal hardship.
Okay.
But then defer to the reducing the non-compliances.
Right. So, hey, Ned, you're in favor of this, right? What is the reasoning?
Ned, you're on mute. We can't hear you.
Come on, Ned.
There you go.
Well, I believe that the people, the Gavins have acquired 2 lots. They are going to make a significant improvement on the waterfront down there. They are bringing the house into FEMA compliance. They are reducing a number of non-compliances by their actions with the new property. And I feel that the property will be consistent with the properties on the shoreline down there.
One of which they built, right?
Pardon me?
One of which they built, yes? Across the street? Did I hear that right?
Did they build? I don't know who built the houses across the street.
Oh, actually, yeah, no, maybe no one said they built it, but they own it, right? The one across the street. There was something about it being similar architecture. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just trying to clarify your question.
Oh, John, I'm gonna stop you just because the public hearing is closed. You really shouldn't be talking, not to
Sorry.
be disrespectful. I don't want you to put yourself in that position.
Kathy, I saw the name Gavin across the street. I don't think, so I think the actual owners of this property is an LLC. I don't know if the LLC owns the property across the street as well.
Oh, I thought somebody had said earlier that they also, own the property across the street and that it was similar in
Right.
architecture or aesthetics or something like that.
So I can be, based on, so that the question that I asked of Dave was, does this support Madison's plan of, conservation and development? Does it support it? And Dave's answer was that it does support it because it brings the structure into FEMA compliance, and it supports the coastal resiliency plan, which is to bring all the structures into FEMA compliance. I love it. I like it. It supports the way that the town is moving. To me, that's enough to grant a variance. But I just the 25% over when you compare the 25% over the allowable lot coverage with the with the fact that we're right on the line at square footage, that gets me as we're really trying to push the envelope, to make this as financially profitable as possible. Whereas if we don't build a house that is right on the envelope, it's not going to be financially profitable, right? I need to think.
Jason, I'll just share, if I could, as a staff person, I'm just going to share my screen because I just want to point you to that particular section of the plan of conservation and development, just for the record.
Yeah, I've read it before. I just don't have it committed to memory.
Yeah, so the one item that really is in line with what we were just talking about was seek to prevent or minimize losses in vulnerable areas. Obviously,
Right.
it shows a storm impacting homes right along Middle Beach Road. And so, I ran through, just if it helps the board in their thinking, and this is not to encourage you one way or another, but I ran through a hypothetical situation in my head. You have two non-conforming homes that don't meet the FEMA regulations. Let's say we have a storm in 2 years that destroys both homes. The owner owns the two homes jointly, could come back to the town and he could rebuild those homes to the same square footage, bring them into FEMA compliance. And I don't know all the numbers, but let's say the coverage was what it is today, 3,400 square feet. So you got two homes, two septic systems on those lots. You could instead choose to, hey guys, instead of building two homes, two septic systems in this area, would you let me build one home with one septic system and I'll take the square footage and combine them? If I was placed in that hypothetical situation, I think I would probably think that minimizing losses and minimizing vulnerabilities is better served by one home, one septic system than the two homes, two septic systems. And that's, I just ran that hypothetical situation in my head. I'll be honest, I'm not normally in favor of big, huge houses. That's not what I prefer. But at the same time, I think, the attorney laid out a fairly thoughtful argument of reduction in nonconformities, and you asked me about the plan of conservation and development. I do think that's a factor in how you guys deliberate about this. So if that's helpful for anybody to kind of run that scenario through their head, I just offer it.
So my fellow board members, I have also read all of the letters of support in this, and there's no direct neighbors that don't support this, right?
Well, except for the person who stood up.
Right. Well, that was 170.
Yeah. Where was she located?
Marlene, can you read back her address?
This was Miss Pfister who spoke earlier. I believe she is next door.
She's 70. She's 72, right? Is that what we said?
Yeah, I forget what it was.
73, I believe.
Yeah, she's on the same side.
So we have a direct abutment that disagrees. Well, that makes it even harder.
That's hard.
Yeah, it does.
Well,
Jason, this is John Delora.
Yeah.
Are you sure she's a direct abutter?
I don't think she is, but she's,
I think there's a slip of land between, I'm not sure, but I know when Russell showed the map, with 150 feet, it seemed like she was not actually a direct abutter. But
That was submitted as an exhibit, correct?
Correct.
Can that be shown again, please? Without violating our fourth wall here?
Yeah, I think it probably could
There's no conversation.
if it was handed to us in the meeting. So I would ask Russ to just pull that up without any comment, please. I think that's a fair thing to do.
Yes, I agree.
Okay, so there's that there's that strip of land and then 71. Okay, so that's not a direct abutment that disagrees. And we have a letter from Burris that says that they're in favor, I think. Okay. So I think that I have justified to myself that I can vote in favor of this based on the argument that was made of combining the lots and decreasing the nonconformance by 1%, even though we increase it, even though we're several percentages over because of 69. And the argument that it is in accordance with the town's plan of conservation and development.
Jason, could I ask you something? I'm sorry to go back to this. So you calculated that the nonconformities are actually not decreased?
Yes. So there's two ways that you can look at increasing or decreasing nonconformity. If we're trying to, and this is just for lot coverage, right?
Yeah, that's all we're voting on anyway, besides
Right.
the setback, right?
Right. So in terms of lot coverage, 67 can have 1,648 square feet of lot coverage. It's currently at 1,638 square feet of lot coverage. 69, because the lot is smaller, you can have 1,432 square feet of lot coverage, and it currently has, let's call it 1,700 for a round number. That's about 20% different. So if we're looking at percentages of nonconformity, which I'm sure that I'm not multiplying ratios correct here, we're looking at a total of 20% nonconformity in terms of lot coverage when we look at 67 and 69 individually. When you combine them and sum their total lot coverages, you're looking at 20, what was it, 24?
Yeah, 24.
Yeah, 24%. So one way we're looking, we're increasing one way we're looking at, we're increasing nonconformity. But if you look at it from a point of view where you combine the lots,
yeah,
and just leave the existing structures there, which can happen if you were to combine the lots, right? If we were to buy 67 and 69 and we want to make it one property that's shared, yes, by tax reasons it would be different, but in reality you're combining the two lots and having two structures on those two lots, two structures and two outbuildings on those two lots. Depending on what you're doing to look at it, you're either increasing it nominally or decreasing it nominally.
So I guess I mean, there's no issue about a hardship. So the question is, can we just, and FEMA's good. I mean, that's part of the kind of mitigating, but the question is, in the absence of a hardship, can we
say that
that they're decreasing?
We can say that they're decreasing if you look at the argument from one point. if you look at the argument from the other point that Catherine brought up, we are increasing nonconformity. So it's not that we're keeping it the same, we're increasing.
Catherine, I'm sorry, can you just, how do you think it's being increased? Sorry, I got a visitor here.
Yeah, so, sorry, I was reading something, so I kind of zoned out a bit, but I think you're asking me. So lot 67, number 67 is allowed, based on the lot size, 1,648 square feet of coverage. There's currently 1,638 square feet covered, so it's in conformity. Number 69 is allowed 1,432, and existing is 1,707. So one of the lots is currently conforming, the other is not, by 20%. And then the new lot that will be created by combining these two will be non-conforming by 24%. So if you're comparing, lot 67 to the new lot, you're going from conforming to non-conforming. If you're comparing lot 69, these are existing lots, to what will exist or what is proposed to exist, a combined lot, you will increase the non-conformity 20% to 24%. Is that what you asked?
Yeah, Catherine, no, I'm trying to, I'm trying to figure out if like I said, that key issue, are we increasing or decreasing
I don't know.
non-conformities? And I guess it depends how you look at it.
Yeah, I don't know what the proper way is to look at it. These cases that were provided in the letter by Attorney McKeon, I mean, I haven't looked them up, and I don't know if there are any cases that deal with going from two lots, combining them to one, and assessing the increase or decrease in conformity with that circumstance. I don't know.
So I think that we have to assume that, I'm going to assume that if we don't grant the variance, then the project isn't going to move forward, and that, we're going to be left with two lots, one of which is non-conforming still in square footage. So I think what we can all,
that the FEMA issue becomes very compelling.
right, the FEMA issue becomes very compelling. Is the FEMA issue more compelling than, an oversized house? And additionally, I do take Russell's argument at face value that the, floor area ratio is appropriate, that in order to meet that floor area ratio, they're doing what they can. They're meeting the floor area ratio. The only problem is that the house is past the allowable footprint.
I would suggest, I mean, FEMA is good, but if we're going to go with reducing nonconformities, we could, I realize it may not, just say that the sum of the two existing is more than what's going to exist after the project.
Right. Well, that's the argument that the applicant is making.
So I think I'm not sure what I think, but there are, yeah, I mean, if we go with that, then there are definitely some mitigating things like FEMA and well, basically FEMA, and going, like you said, with the coastal site plan for Madison, the coastal resource plan.
Yeah. Ned, do you want to make a motion and we can vote on it?
Good idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to make a motion to approve the plans as submitted, and based on the nonconformance, reduction in the nonconformity, and the compliance with the new FEMA standards for new construction in the coastal floodplain.
So what do you need, a second?
Yeah, is there a second?
Yeah,
Is there a second?
yes, second.
All in favor?
Can you repeat it, please? Or maybe Marlene can read it back.
Motion is made to approve the application as submitted based on the following reasons, that it is the application is reducing the nonconformities on the properties as submitted, as well as bringing the property into compliance with the FEMA requirements for new construction.
Bill seconds it and we're to vote.
Right, I'll second that again.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, it's gonna be me.
Come on, Chase.
Come on, Jason.
After all this,
Aye.
Aye.
Kathy? Kathy?
Nay.
That's
Four
1.
to 1. 4 ayes, 1 nay.
The motion passes.
The motion passes. Okay. Well, I don't have the,
Now it's time for coastal site plan.
yeah, and I don't have a coastal site plan. Wait a minute.
Chris, are you guys prepared for Mike to start running through that? Or do you want to say a few words first?
No, he could start running. It's starting to get late. If he'd like to start going on that.
I'm going to, Chris McKeon, again, for the record, for the applicant, Mike Harkin has prepared our coastal site plan and the application for coastal site plan review. Mike is here and can further explain the application. Mike?
Yep. Good evening, everybody. For the record, my name is Michael Harkin. I'm a professional engineer and principal of Harkin Engineering, located at 78 Wolf Hollow Lane in the town of Killingworth, Connecticut. Again, here tonight on behalf of the clients, Lorraine John Gavin, as well as 67 Middle Beach Road West LLC for their project. I'll make it very brief. We've been at it for quite a while now. This is for a coastal site plan application. As part of the application, you previously heard that we will be combining 2 parcels, knocking down the structures that currently pre-exist on 67 and 69, building 1 FEMA compliant house. Some other pertinences on there will be the swimming pool. That will be a saltwater swimming pool. There is an existing seawall in the back of the property. We will be doing nothing with that seawall with this application. My office has touched base with DEP about looking into doing a repair to that wall, but that is not part of this application right now. The rear of the house is basically going to be a pervious patio. The driveway up in front, again, will be made of a pervious structure so that the rainwater that's coming will still be able to enter into the ground and recharge. In the front of the house, we actually have 2 on-site drainage systems to collect the roof leader runoff. They're centrally located. And Russ, since you are a host, can you put up my coastal site plan up on there? All right, so real quick towards the front of the property, you can see 2 sets of underground detention basins up underneath the driveway. So those detention basins will collect the roof leader runoff, and they're centrally located so that we're actually feeding both sides of the parcel to get a full equal groundwater recharge. Again, the driveway will be made of pervious material, and then the rear deck area, or not so much deck, the rear paver patio will be pervious as well. The existing septic system and the rear of the property does not have to be upgraded. We have an application in front of the Town of Madison Health Department, which we reviewed. They agreed it is sufficiently sized. When Mr. Gavin did the work on the existing residence on that site, he had at that time went through and repaired being put in a new system that was full compliant. So again, this is a fairly easy site plan for us. We're taking two structures, actually a bunch of structures that are not FEMA compliant. We're building one structure that will be FEMA compliant. We're pushing it as close to the street as we can, which equals furthest away from the coastal resource, which is the back of that existing seawall. It's such a minor application as far as CAM goes with DEP that DEP did not even send a comment letter back regarding this project because it was so minor. So with that being said, I mean, that's pretty much it. We do show the erosion control measures out in front as far as stockpiling of material, topsoil, things of that nature. They'll be rung with silt fence. We do show areas that have staked hay bales and silt fence around the property. And then we do have construction entrances, again, up towards the front of the property, which is a CAM requirement. All these sediment and erosion controls basically help prevent the addition of any silt or things of that nature, debris going into Long Island Sound. Lastly, it was mentioned about the stormwater runoff. We do have those two sets of underground detention, and what they will do is actually they will make the post-development stormwater runoff, basically the rain amounts, equal to or less than the pre-development condition. So we did look into that. We did run the numbers. It's also important to note that towards the north of the property, there is a drainage easement for the town. The catch basins from Middle Beach Road west are basically collected and discharged through the client's property out into Long Island Sound. So that is on there. That was kind of one of the design constraints of this. Obviously, we can't put a structure in there being so close with all that drainage. So all those items, you know, really kind of played into the design and the layout of the site. Utilities are all on the road, so we'll be coming underground. Really not an issue. I mean, as far as the site plan application goes, again, fairly simple site plan. So with that being said, I'd love to turn it over, answer any questions that you may have with it. And then, you know, we hopefully be looking for approval on that as well tonight.
Well, you've answered one of my questions, which is why don't we have a letter from DEEP? John, is that consistent with your understanding that when the DEEP's lack of comment indicates?
Well, I mean, there could be several reasons why we don't get a letter. You know, DEP is understaffed. That could be a reason. They may not take it, you know, too seriously that there's any kind of impact to the coastal resources. So it's not on there. It's not high on their list. I think my opinion is, based on many of these that I've seen come and go through DEP, that this particular coastal site plan review is consistent with the goals and the policies of the Coastal Management Act. So that's probably why we have not got a letter. I think if it was some compelling reason that they were concerned about it, we would have heard. But there could be a couple of different reasons.
So I'm going to assume that a lack of response from DEEP means that it's consistent and they just have nothing to say. Is that's an okay stance to take?
You can make that, yeah, you can make that stance.
I have no questions.
Are there any further questions?
I don't have any, Ned.
The application says the septic system will be modified to handle the new residence. That you said that the septic system does not need to be modified. Did I hear that right?
Yeah, the clarification on that is the tank and the septic and the leaching field and the stone around it doesn't need to be modified, but the pipe leading from the house to the tank will need to be modified. Obviously, because we're ripping those structures down, that pipe will be damaged. And then when we actually elevate the structure, the piping will have to be secured differently to the post. So I believe it's 27 feet of 4-inch PVC will have to be reconfigured.
Thank you.
I have a question. Why didn't they consider strengthening the retainer wall as part of this application?
Yep. So there's a very easy answer to that. The permitting process with DEP, whether you need a certificate of permission application, which generally takes 8 months, or the other item is, which application do we fall under? Do we fall under a general permit? The problems we're having, which was mentioned before, is DEP is understaffed. It's hard to even get anybody out here due to COVID. So we just don't know the answer to it. Right now, that wall is structurally, it's in place. It's not going to go anywhere. So, we didn't deem it as being a real significant item at this juncture. Now, it's ongoing that we're having conversations with DEP, and there might be an application to DEP to repair that wall or replace that wall at some point in time. So we are working on it. We just didn't put in this application because we just don't know what application to apply for.
So, Mike, what you're saying is that DEEP hasn't come out and looked at that wall, right? But
correct.
You as a professional engineer, you as a professional engineer have looked at the wall and determined that it is structurally sound, does not need to be replaced, is not eroded away, yada yada yada.
Yeah, there are certain, honestly, with any wall, there are certain deficiencies. Even the walls that I did over at the Beach Hotel, I think we did 1,500 feet after the first storm. Even that has deficiencies. Every wall has a deficiency. So I can't make that general statement that the wall is 100% fine. The wall is standing. It will withhold storm events. It's withhold storm events, for I don't know how many years that's been in place, even before the Gavins owned it. It's so difficult to get DEP out here to look at things. A great example is we did for the town of Madison, the dock over on West Wharf for the fire department. It was an emergency situation. We couldn't even get them out there to come take a look at that. We just had to process it, take the pictures of the install, and submit an application after the fact for that. So when I do hear from DEP, we will file the application to either repair it if it's a general permit or go for a certificate of permission.
So there's still action with DEP regarding the wall that is not completed.
Yes, sir. We just don't know what to apply for at this juncture. If we do decide to repair it again, Mr. Gavin could say, listen, that wall, it's been there for years. It hasn't moved in years. It's been through some major storms in the last 15 to 20 years, and it's still in place. The most important thing with that wall that people have to realize, if it is replaced, if it is taken out and put back in, per a general statute, that wall cannot be any higher and it has to go in the same exact location. So that wall has to be at the same height, in the same horizontal and vertical locations. You can't make it higher. You can't extend your property to get more beach, and you can't withdraw it in to get more land. It has to be basically what's there now.
So if you do redo it, it's just new concrete and rebar.
Pretty much it. Or we might just parge it, or again, do nothing. It really comes down from the requirements of DEP if we do anything with the wall.
But that's not in this coastal site plan. That's not in this application.
That is correct.
This application only deals with the construction of the house.
The house, the pool, the pavers, patio, which all can be installed right now. The wall does not have to be repaired. It's only a choice if Mr. Gavin wants to do that in the future.
Okay, so the wall is in parallel to this. It's not in series.
Correct.
Thank you. Sorry, I thought I was done with my questions.
No worries.
Okay. Can I make a motion?
Okay, go ahead.
I move to approve the coastal site plan based on the fact that it's consistent with the goals and policies of the Connecticut Coastal Management Act.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay.
That's approved.
Yep, that was unanimous.
Excellent.
All right, guys, thank you very much for your time. As you can see, as a project team, we put a lot of work into it. I hope that Mr. Gavin is going to love his new house and home and, you know, back into Madison.
I appreciate all your time tonight.
Thank you for your time and patience with the process.
No problem. No, you got me on the edge there for a minute, but I appreciate it. We'll do it nicely.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Have a good night.
Good night.
So can I move to approve the minutes from the previous meeting?
You may. Second.
Correction for the minutes.
Yes, Dennis?
I don't believe that I was seated in that meeting to replace myself.
Yeah, Catherine, I believe, took my place.
I wasn't at the last meeting.
I believe, Rich.
Oh, I'm sorry, Catherine. I thought you took my place.
If you weren't there, I must have been.
Tom was there last meeting, I believe.
What's the correction? What is the correction?
Marlene, we see where Dennis Crow was put in to replace Dennis Crow. I think I replaced Rich Gilbert instead of myself.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, with that correction, I got no further comments.
Okay. The motion is amended.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, well, thank you very much for coming out. And great job. And again, my apologies for running a bit late. I have to get better with technology. So tough being my age and not knowing how to run this stuff.
Motion
I have no kids around.
Move to adjourn.
Somebody want to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Adjourned.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Yes, that's it. Thanks, everyone.
Good night.
Night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Catherine. Good seeing you.